everyone, my name is Emily and I live in Ukraine. This is part 2 of my video talking about misinformation lies that I've seen in the media and debunking them and letting you guys know what is really going on. So if you have not watched part 1, please go and do that now. The first part I already filmed the other day, but then I got too long so I had to add it to this one. So you'll see that first and then I will continue with the rest of it. Lie number 5, Ukraine was the one who attacked first, and the enemy was just defending its territory and was clearly provoked. That's the lie. This is only true if you believe that Crimea, Donetsk, Luhansk, all of that was already belonging to the enemy, and that was the enemy's birthright, and they had control of their land. But they have not. It's not their land. It was Ukraine's, and for the most part always has been under the Ukrainian ethnic border map. Ukraine did not fire first. There were also false flag operations that did happen that were staged by the enemy to make it look like Ukraine was doing this. They said that shells had landed into their territory. They said that when they were evacuating the regions full of orphans and stuff like that, that Ukraine was planning on bombing them. And Ukraine was like, why would we do that? They did not attack first. Ukraine was defending their land. Believe me, they would much rather live in peace, live their own lives, and let their neighbors live their own lives too. But that's not a possibility for the man in charge of the enemy, the tyrant, as I will call him. That's a threat to him, not because of anything they did, but just because they are existing under freedom, they're not under his control, they're a valuable resource. All of that is a threat, and therefore, that is one of the reasons why this is happening. Lie number 6. This is all the United States' fault. Did the United States, especially the media, make it worse in the beginning? I think they probably did. I think they walked right into the tyrant's trap. This is exactly what he wanted them to do. This was all part of his plan so that he could make a very weak excuse and say he was provoked. But no one forced him to give the order to attack. No one forced him to fire the missiles. No one forced him to send planes over Kiev and drop bombs. There is ultimately only one person on whom this responsibility lies. And it's not the United States. It's not Ukraine. There's only one person responsible, and history will show that. I hope, anyways. Lie number 7, Ukraine is too corrupt, and therefore we shouldn't help them. / also being involved in trafficking, and this is also a lie that the enemy is spreading, that they're the righteous ones trying to stop this. As far as the American media goes, I have seen this starting to spread. Specifically, Tulsi Gabbard made a video about it, and it was brought to our attention by a friend who said this video is going around and people are changing their minds about support for Ukraine. I'm not going to link it because I don't want more people to have access to that, but I will tell you what she said basically is that Ukraine is not a democracy. President Zelensky threw his political opponent in jail and shut down 3 top news stations in the country who were also on the opposition, and he didn't like them, and so he shut them down. Therefore, he is just as corrupt, and Ukraine is just as corrupt as the enemy. Here's the problem with that video, is that some of the facts that she talks about are true, but clearly she doesn't know what's going on, because if you have done more than a 5-minute Google search, you will see why these things happen. So remember the last video I talked about Luhansk and Donetsk, and they tried to separate. Well, in 2014, when this all happened, and again, this is all in Winter on Fire, please go watch it. It's so important. It directly impacts what's going on today. The president at the time was Yanukovych, and he fled the country, stole money from the government, went back to the enemy, long story short, it turns out he was basically a puppet for them. The president who was elected after Yanukovych was named Poroshenko. He was elected, claimed to be doing a lot of good work and fighting corruption, yada, yada, yada. But there was still a lot of corruption in the country. So when the next election came around, there were actually two election rounds. This is how the election system worked, at least for this election. There were 39 candidates in the first round. Clearly, there was not enough of a vote to say one or the other, so they took the two most popular and had round two. Those two candidates were Poroshenko, who was already in office running for a second term, and President Zelensky. Zelensky won the second round of the election with a astonishing 73.22% of the vote. That's a lot.
Meanwhile, this is what the presidents looked like since the year 2000 in other corrupt countries in Europe. I think this image speaks for itself.
The people were all for him, and it was not like, oh, the people were wanting Poroshenko and somehow Zelensky got in. No, there was a lot of support. It was very clear. Zelensky was running because he was tired of the corruption, and he honestly wanted to fight it. He was very honest in his campaign. He was an actor and comedian before this. He wanted nothing to do with the government corruption, and so he started an investigation. In this investigation, they found out that Poroshenko had been making a ton of illegal money with the enemy. So he was placed under house arrest. Not even in jail, he was placed under house arrest. His candy company, Roshan Chocolate, which is amazing, I love it. The company is still thriving and doing really well. So that's what happened with him. You can't be angry at the corruption in Ukraine and then be mad when those people are held accountable. You can't have it both ways, Tulsi. It's just a double standard. Now, for the three news stations, they were still pro the enemy, pro separation of Lugansk and Donetsk, pro Yanukovych, saying he was the one true president, even though his term was already up. They wanted him back in power. They were basically spouting off propaganda. They were also downplaying and lying about the conflict that was happening in Donetsk and Luhansk at the border. They were saying that it wasn't real, it wasn't happening. They were ignoring all of the death and the danger. Ukraine has technically been at war, in a conflict with the enemy for 8 years. It has to be taken seriously. Imagine today, if in Ukraine, imagine all of a sudden these news stations only just started saying this. What would you say to it then? It was necessary. It was not just because, oh, Zelensky didn't like him. They were saying mean things about him. It was more than that. It was a security thing. And all the Ukrainians I've talked to, again, agree. So it's not just some dumb American here saying this. I have talked to my Ukrainian friends about it. And they were like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not at all what happened. So yeah, Zelensky has actually been very honest, the least corrupt president that they've had so far. And they're all trying to work on being better. They're all trying to fight it. But it's decades at this point of corruption that they are trying to undo. It is ingrained habits in people sometimes that they're trying to undo. That takes a lot of work and it's going to take a lot of time. And as far as trafficking goes, that's everywhere. No country has the moral high ground on that. Certainly not the enemy. So I don't really see what the point of that argument is either. Also, neither of those things negates the harmful damage that the enemy is doing. It doesn't negate the wrong that the enemy is doing by invading the country. And it's certainly not an excuse to not help them. No country is perfect. Certainly not the United States. That's not a reason to not help somebody, in my opinion. Other quick facts that the enemy does not want you to know: almost 1,000 of their troops are dying per day in their own country. As of now, like 11 days into the war, they're only reporting 1,000 total. almost 10,000 people have been arrested in St. Petersburg and Moscow for protesting, including children and old women.
Почему ты там сидишь?
Все будет хорошо, ты мне веришь?
Хорошо, почему ты там сидишь?
Потому что задача, чтобы много людей не собиралось, чтобы они не говорили, что они против войны, понимаешь?
Видишь?
Выйдем, конечно, не волнуйся, пожалуйста. Сейчас ты рядом.
And it's horrifying. They're in horrifying conditions. They are terrified to continue living in their country without saying anything. They're terrified to say something. They cannot move. People who are abroad are terrified of the discrimination against them. It's a bad situation right now.
I'm editing, and I just wanted to clarify that that is referring to the people who actually know and believe what is going on. A lot of them are very brainwashed by all of this. There have been lots of cases of family members who live in Ukraine, who live in Kiev, who have called their family members who live in Moscow and other cities. And their family members say, no, it's not true, you're lying to me. And they don't even believe their own family members. So it's a big problem.
The word war is illegal to mention now. People have been banned from saying it. They cannot say it on news channels, in text messages, all of this. They cannot use that word. It has been banned. Any information, any of their so-called misinformation about the war could result in up to 15 to 30 years in prison. It is considered treason to mention any sort of support for Ukraine. Treason. It is absolutely terrifying over there right now, which is exactly why the rest of the world needs to get involved. Some of the fighter jets that belonged to the enemy violated Swedish airspace a couple days ago. They turned around and went back, but they still violated Swedish airspace. They also attacked a ship from Bangladesh and killed one of the crew members. And at the very beginning, in the early days, one of their ships shot down one of their own planes. So that's how it's going for the enemy right now.
Well, once again, that ended up being longer than I expected, and there's still more. So I'm going to end it here, and I will make a part 3 coming soon. So please subscribe so you don't miss that, and ask any questions that you might still have or have heard about down below, and I will see you next time. Thank you for watching.